Hey guys, it's Captain Forest here, and today I'm back with a spicy cross-verse matchup. I have a Marvel vs DC matchup which was purchased and requested for. Today I have Sentry versus Superboy Prime, and I'm going to go ahead and get right into meat and potatoes of things. But before I start this video, please make sure you leave a like, comment down below, and of course subscribe for further content. Also, shouts to Coffee Shop Gang, they make awesome content. Links will be in the description. And also, shoutouts to the HQ squad. Massive shoutouts to Korin. He helped me in this video as well. Much appreciated to him and the rest of the other squad members too. Much appreciated. And also, I will leave links to supporting links too if you guys would like to support me on a personal level. So yeah, I'm going to get right into the meat and potatoes of things. I'm going to pretty much break things down, give context behind a lot of these feats and all these amazing characters. So yeah, I'm going to start with Superboy Prime, and then I'm going to talk about Sentry afterwards. So Superboy Prime has some pretty impressive showings in feats. Superman Prime was able to smile off attacks from Black Adam, who laced his fists with magical lightning. Superboy notes, they tickle, and then he proceeded to one-shot Black Adam. Superboy is a team buster. He was able to go on to completely destroy and lay waste to the JSA, the Teen Titans, and the Doom Patrol. He one-shots them, pretty much all of them. Superboy Prime also noted that he wasn't even trying when he fought against the JSA, the Teen Titans, and the Doom Patrol as well. So he was just ripping them apart pretty casually. Superboy Prime was able to fight against two Supermen, physically hurt them. This would include the scaling that pre-crisis and post-crisis performed when they affected the 11th dimension. So that's like a high complex multiversal plus feat right there. But obviously, if you don't include the context behind it, the feat would only be like low multi. But that's easily high complex multiversal plus. And Superboy Prime was able to scrap with the Green Lantern Corp, and he completely bullies them. He destroys a lot of the Green Lanterns with ease. This is impressive because Green Lantern rings are extra dimensional in nature, making them 4D. So in terms of AP, Superboy Prime would range around Uni Plus, Low Multi to Multiversal Plus. I'll go more into detail near the end of the video, but pretty much he should be ranging around those areas of AP pretty consistently. Now as for speed, Superboy Prime should easily have high immeasurable to irrelevant speed. Superboy has demonstrated to react and punch back Jay Garrick, Wally West, and Bart when they attempted to speed blitz Superboy, which is very impressive. Wally West has been able to run to the 853rd Sentry. Superman kept pace with Jay Garrick and Wally West while they were chasing the Reverse Flash to the past. We've also seen Superman outpace reality blitzing missiles that were sterilizing the continuum. So that's going to conclude AP and speed. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Superboy Prime's abilities. So Superboy Prime has his heat vision, which vaporizes things just like Superman pretty much. He can also perform ice breath. Superboy, he was able to demonstrate his most infamous ability, the retcon punch, where he pretty much changes the person's history when he punches, and he was able to do this to Beast Boy. Superboy can also get out of BFR or ceiling by punching his way out, such as his feat where he punched out of the Phantom Zone. Now, I'd like to give more context behind this feat. This would not make Superboy Prime ultraversal. This is a unquantifiable feat, as he didn't affect the entirety of the Phantom Zone. For example, if I punch a hole through a building, let's say I punch a hole through a building wall to escape the building, like that wouldn't make me building level, like that wouldn't equate to building level. So that's essentially what Superboy Prime did. He just did it to get out, and he didn't affect the Phantom Zone in its entirety. So that'd be like unquantifiable scaling. Superboy has also demonstrated to escape the Speed Force after being thrown inside of it, which is very impressive. Superboy doesn't have any weakness to magic like Superman, and Superboy can also perform the Thunderclap too. And lastly, it's also noted that Superboy's retcon punch also alters reality and changes the events as well, which is pretty impressive. So overall, Superboy should have the same powers as the other Supermen, pretty much enhanced senses, flight, heat vision, ice breath, AP wise, he should range around Uni Plus to low multi to multi plus, or high complex multiversal plus. So that's going to round up Superboy Prime. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Golden Guardian himself, Sentry. So this is something extremely important to establish. The Sentry's power varies depending on his mental stability. This makes him go from Herald level to destroying Yggdrasil, Strange, and Eternity. Some people might argue this is an unquantifiable difference in strength, as we can't directly measure his stability, but we can use his showings within each of these instances as an underlying standard to distinguish between a stable and an unstable Sentry. Presuming the page itself doesn't make that clear, even if Sentry were to be mentally stable at any point in time, we still have to take into consideration him holding back a lot for ethical and collateral purposes. Another thing to take into consideration is his agoraphobia. This is the main cause of him staying outside of fights. The only thing he fears more than the void is his own power, as we've seen in World War Hulk. This also explains why when he does act, he doesn't expend the energies he's actually capable of expending, simply a sufficient amount to dispose of any threat. Sentry has demonstrated to completely embarrass Dr. Doom and absolutely shred through his force fields, with the latter being the actual feat. It is then repeated again that Sentry could do the exact same thing with no pressure in the following issue. He repeated twice to make it clear, literally from Iron Man, who wouldn't underestimate Vic Von Doom. The reasons this is so impressive is because his force fields were directly capable of shielding against and absorbing the energies of a mad celestial, making him survive an attack which completely embarrassed Galactus. They were completely unscathed by Captain Britain, who at that point was operating on a multiversal / omniversal level. He survived a direct blast from the IG, which is capable of tanking attacks from a Galactus who had the capability of destroying all realities, known and unknown, and all of time within a single thought. The Cosmic Cube was stated to be a fraction of Galactus's power too. They were stated to be completely superior to Susan's force fields, which were capable of withstanding attacks from the Celestials on 2 different instances. We know her force fields also depend on her mental prowess as well. At the very least, we know at her peak, she could withstand an incursion too. In issue 383, Sorcerer Supreme Loki was stated to be a threat to the entire magical realm and the entirety of the multiverse by Stefan and Sentry. This is important because both Yggdrasil Strange, Void / Sentry have been repeatedly shown to be above him within the span of these 3 issues. Yggdrasil Strange was stated to be at his absolute peak, far superior to any other incarnation and form of Strange, with him being a god of magic relative to them simply being sorceresses, and him being much more. We can deduce the statement of more magic that I have ever known to mean 2 things. The statement is impersonal and external, relating to Strange's general observations. This would yield insanely, really, just crazy high results, since we could conclude Yggdrasil Strange was superior to quite literally any foe he faced before, not only his previous incarnations, and any form of those foes too. This statement is personal and internal, relating to Strange's observations, relating to his past selves, which would still yield insane results considering the innumerable amps Strange has gotten throughout the runs. This is the same Strange who Loki fought. Another thing to note is that Loki was still God of Stories at this point. God of Stories Loki has phenomenal feats, but to make it simple, this is not just Loki plus his Sorcerer Supreme mantle fighting. This is Loki plus Sorcerer Supreme plus God of Stories. While the fight was evidently Strange having the upper hand, we ought not ignore the contextual narrative implications we get throughout the fight, as we see both on panel and dialogue, which we can inductively reason off. Loki was able to contend with the Strange, directly tanking a blast, seemingly swapping hands with him in a last panel, and not being afraid of Strange being amped by Yggdrasil and still willing to fight. While Loki is egotistical, he has another predicate which is even more dominant, which is his intellect. He knows when to fight or when to utilize his cunningness, and we can already tell the approach he took here. So based off this, we can conclude that Sorcerer Supreme, God of Stories Loki, is capable of contending with Yggdrasil Strange to some extent. Another thing to take into consideration is that Sentry, who was quite literally asleep, acted as a conduit for Yggdrasil Strange's magic, pretty much his power. This is self-explanatory and does not require anything else. You might be wondering, why is it so important to establish this Loki to be so powerful? It's because the Void completely embarrassed the same Loki, as well as Doctor Strange, and Sentry was capable of damaging the Void and holding it off. So that's absolutely insane scaling, some really insane scaling right there. We've also seen Sentry contain the energies of a disabled cosmic cube in his earlier years. Sentry has obviously gotten stronger, far more stronger since then. Absorbing Man, who can absorb the powers of a cosmic cube, Odin, Galactus, power which can destroy Scarlet Witch, Wiccan and Dormammu, couldn't handle Sentry giving him all his power and basically collapsed on himself. Even with a mere fraction, he literally flat out states he thinks Sentry is God himself with these powers, which is absolutely insane. Like, not even the Absorbing Man could handle such power from Sentry. So you're probably wondering, what about Merge Sentry? Well, let's talk about him. For those who don't know, Reynolds finally decided to embrace the nature of his other half for the first time, rather than continue to fight its warring parts. This resulted in the creation of Merge Sentry. Speaking of Billy, aka Scout, Merge Sentry snapped his neck. Keep in mind, Scout became the new Sentry and was previously overpowering the original Sentry before he became whole. So right there and there, got some crazy scaling for Sentry, so easily like some high outerversal scaling. This scaling is absolutely insane. Just really good scaling for Sentry. Now for speed, it's pretty self-explanatory. Scaling wise, Sentry should easily have irrelevant speed naturally, due to the nature of him being at such a high level of AP. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the Sentry's hacks and abilities and all that good stuff. So for starters, Sentry has been able to manipulate matter and molecules. We've seen Sentry use this to stop Mjolnir and drop it to the ground. I think it would be also a good idea to talk about the fight between Molecule Man and Sentry. The fight has caused a lot of controversy, with many people labeling it as plot-induced stupidity or coming up with their own theories. We do know that the Sentry was killed twice by Molecule Man before realizing how to use his powers. When he does have Molecule Man on the ropes, he has to ask the more experienced Molecule Man to return everything back to normal, which shows that Sentry was a novice at using this type of power. So was the fight plot-induced stupidity? Absolutely not, because there is actually forgotten context behind this fight. So let's talk a little bit about Molecule Man in this situation. Molecule Man during the time was not inherently depowered. However, there is a difference between being depowered and being weakened. Many writers have stated Molecule Man was not depowered, but they did not state that he was not weakened. During Dark Avengers, Molecule Man was weakened, similar to the Sentry. Owen's powers resolve around the state of his mind. We know during the arc of Dark Avengers that Molecule Man was feeling lonely and whatnot. So while this feat shouldn't inherently be looked at as an AP feat for Sentry, it's still useful when it comes to his ability to manipulate molecules and matter. So moving on, Sentry has demonstrated phenomenal sensory capabilities. For example, Sentry is capable of hearing a butterfly sneeze in Africa while he himself is in New York. Sentry can track people by sensing their aura. Sentry is capable of feeling Exetar's energy from the White Hot Room, which is far beyond the far shore. Another one of Sentry's iconic hacks is his potent telepathic capabilities and mental prowess. We've seen Sentry telepathically talk to Charles Xavier. Even Emma Frost and Charles Xavier had to combine their efforts to invade Sentry's mind, and even then, Emma Frost only had access to the white room she built inside of Sentry's mind. Shortly after she was inside, the Void attacked her and forced her to stay inside her diamond form to avoid being killed by the Void. Oh, and let's not forget how Sentry is capable of manipulating the emotions of his opponent if necessary. A good example of this is when he manipulated the emotions of the Hulk, causing him not to feel angry anymore. So that's going to pretty much round up Sentry. I'm going to go ahead and break this fight down. So in terms of AP and showings, I'd have to lean more so to Sentry. He has better AP feats, vastly above what Superboy Prime is capable of. Now I want to give some context behind Superboy Prime's fights. So the reasons why I did not mention the anti-monitor fight for Superboy Prime scaling is because there's context. The anti-monitor that Superboy Prime teared up was actually weakened after fighting a bunch of the other Green Lanterns and the other heroes, so it is unquantifiable and we are unable to gauge how powerful this anti-monitor is. So pretty much Superboy Prime beat up a weakened anti-monitor, so we can't even deprive any scaling from that, unfortunately. Also, the Darkest Night fight as well, there is a lot of context behind that fight. The Darkest Night was suppressed. He was trying to preserve his energy for his fights. He even states to Superboy Prime that he wanted to work with Superboy Prime. His intentions wasn't to kill Superboy Prime, and he even says to Superboy Prime that he would prefer to save the energy than use it on him, showing that he was suppressed in his fight. And in fact, it was Superboy Prime that negged himself with the final punch when he punched the Darkest Night so hard and he told Crypto to run away, that he killed himself trying to fight the Darkest Night, who wasn't even trying much. He was like suppressed. So again, unquantifiable scaling. We can't gauge anything from it, and it's pretty evident that he doesn't scale to it. And even if we presuppose and say, okay, what about at the end? What if we assume that the Darkest Night used his full power near the end? Well, that doesn't help anyway, because Superboy Prime died. He died in that fight, so he can't scale to it regardless. There's no scaling to be depicted from it, especially since Superboy Prime took the L in that fight. So we can't use that, unfortunately. So consistently, Superboy Prime should be multi-plus or high complex multiversal plus, and Sentry just has far better feats, far better scaling. Even if we do it in rounds, let's say we start off with just stable Sentry is already like outerversal, high outerversal, like just a calm Sentry who's at peace with himself. And then it just gets worse as we climb up the ladder of Sentry's power levels, of course. So overall, I just have to give it to Sentry. Just has better AP. He just literally just tear through Superboy Prime more often than not. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys on next one.